information for parents. That's another thing that we've talked about is with adults. There are websites that have lots of information for parents. There are books, and not just books that parents can read, but a lot of times I'll have parents come to me and they'll say things like, my child is having bad dreams, my child is having this, and to have a list of children's books that work for them. And you know what some of those books are. We'll talk about some of those. But A Nightmare in My Closet, or some books like that that sort of help children work through that and help children realize that they're not alone. They're not the only person having the only child having bad dreams. That's a pretty typical part of life, and to not feel quite so isolated. Articles that you run into, and then maybe including a section in your newsletter, if your center does a newsletter, or if your classroom does a newsletter, of some easy things that parents can do, or some things that you're working on in the classroom that they can practice at home. Because I think a lot of times with our parents, I've been in education for a while, not as long as Pam, since that seems to be the gold standard today. But in all the time that I've worked with kids and all the kids that I've seen go through, I can only think of one situation that I've had where I've really had a parent that was hurting their child, was out to hurt their child. In all those other children, parents want what's best for their children. They want to do what's best for their children. They just don't always know how to do it. So sometimes when we're doing things in our classrooms, when we're doing things that you think would be helpful, when suggesting to a parent that a Candyland game might be helpful to try to teach their child, to take turns and to have that opportunity, to go ahead and do those things for parents, because they don't always know. And sometimes we think just because parents are very educated that they know these things. Such and such's dad is a doctor, such and such's dad, their mom is, a financial advisor or whatever. But what I have discovered through the years is that doesn't mean they know anything about little children. I can't tell you the number of educated parents that I've had that says, I got his report card, and the teacher says he doesn't know his letters, but he does know his letters. Listen, sing them for him. Sing the letters for him. And I'm like, but that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about singing. Or parents that will say, he does know all of his numbers. He can count to 50. But they can't do one-to-one correspondence with anything. So we often think sometimes just because parents have education in one area or because they're really involved that they know all these things, and they don't. And so sometimes it's our job to make sure that they understand a little bit more about those things. Books. Some books that you might be able to use are to cover fears. There's A Nightmare in My Closet. Belonging, Are You My Mother? I've always hated reading that book to my kids because it's so long. That little thing looks for his mother for like 70 pages. But that's a good one to do with. Being Loved, some of the corduroy books, especially the beginning books with those. And there's also a whole bunch of books about kindergarten transition and life transition, and one that I pulled out is, Will I Have Friends at School? Some of those questions that children have. And a lot of these are books, I always think of The Kissing Hand, which I'm sure a lot of y'all use at the beginning of the year. And as a matter of fact, when my little girl went to pre-K, the teacher had a little lip stamp and put it on all their hands to remind them of their parents, while they were away. Just trying to make some of those separations a little bit easier, because those things can be difficult for parents. At my school, on the first day of school, I have the boo-hoo breakfast. And that is where parents can come down to the library and eat donuts and drink coffee and cry if they need to, because grown-ups don't cry in classrooms. That's my rule in my school. We're not doing any of that. How many of you have had a kid in your classroom where you want to be like, will you go ahead and cry so your mama can leave? Yes. She's just hanging around. She's just waiting for things to go bad. Everything is good. I just want to be like, pinch the kid so the kid will cry so mama can go home. And those are those things where you realize immediately this is about meeting the needs of mom and dad or the adult that's brought the child. This isn't about what the child needs. Because the child's come in and they're like fine. As a matter of fact, they're like, I'm finally getting away from that woman for a little bit. She's always cramping my style. So you have a kid that's coming in and really eager to start off school, and mom is just like, I hope that this will be okay. Let me wipe your face. Let me give you your book bag. And you want to be like, just go. We'll work everything out. Same with children that are crying. And a lot of times with those kinds of things, parents don't know what to do. Their kid is screaming and crying, and they're looking to you for like, do you want me to stay and comfort them? Do you want me to? So give them clear directions. I got it. Go. Feel free to call when feel free to call this afternoon. We're going to be fine. She will have stopped crying by the time you back out of the thing. So tell parents what you need from them in those situations. Of course, they don't have to do it, but to give them, because they're not sure how you want it handled.